Deep within the far reaches of space, there existed a planet filled with a savage race of aliens known as the Saiyans. Gifted with amazing abilities and raised from birth to be warriors, this barbaric race conquered many planets throughout the galaxy in the name of the space tyrant known as Lord Frieza. However, Frieza was afraid of the Saiyans' potential and chose to destroy their home planet, exterminating most of the Saiyan race in the process. Only a few Saiyans remained, scattered across the universe. These same Saiyans would be the beginning of a great change that would eventually alter the fate of the universe. But what if fate had different plans? What if Frieza was able to accomplish his mission in eradicating the entire Saiyan race? How would events play out in a universe without Saiyans? The stage is set for the course of history to change forever. A future ends and an adventure begins. What if none of the Saiyans survived? Within the confines of his chamber, a lone, diminutive figure stands near a monitor with a malicious sneer forming over his face. The ruthless prodigy known as Frieza was musing over a previous conversation he had with his father, King Cold. He was told that he would soon inherit his father's empire and claim the title of Emperor of the Universe. In a few weeks' time, Frieza would go on a grand tour throughout the galaxy with his father in order to announce his ascension to every civilization under their command. In order to prepare for his trip, Frieza was silently studying the various planets and species under his soon-to-be jurisdiction. After all, what kind of emperor would he be if he didn't know who it was that would be kneeling under his heel? As he was swiping across his monitor to review one of the last planets on his list, the nearby door slid open with a clink as a familiar, shrill voice filled the chamber.
My, aren't you quite the studious one?
Frieza chuckles a bit and, without taking his eyes off the monitor, calmly states to the elderly attendant,
"Oh, but of course, Berryblue. If I am to take Father's place at the throne, then it is important to learn all I can about our assets. Every planet, every race, every resource. Knowledge is power after all, and there is no one as powerful as I. Isn't that right?"
Right you are, my lord.
As Berryblue slowly approaches Frieza, she asks,
And what exactly are you researching right now?
Oh, I'm simply studying this filthy race of monkeys known as the Saiyans. As much as their culture and transformations disgust me, I cannot deny that they aren't a valuable tool for the Cold Force. As barbaric as they are, they add some much-needed muscle to our armies. The latest reports also state that the Saiyans alone make up over 40% of our successful planetary possessions. As crude and unrefined as they are quite talented in grunt work. Blah 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 Saiyans.
As Frieza is talking, Berryblue quietly reads the monitor. After a quick scan of the file's contents, Berryblue smiles softly and waits for Frieza to finish speaking before she can say anything.
I see that this file doesn't contain as much information on the Saiyans as I thought.
Frieza turns his head to face Berryblue as he raises one of his brows.
What exactly do you mean, Berryblue? I was under the impression that the Cold Force databases were exemplary. Are they not constantly being monitored and updated on a regular basis?
But of course, my lord. I'm simply saying that there is a missing piece of information regarding Saiyan transformation is all.
Frieza's curiosity was rising. Was there a valuable piece of information that his father's forces weren't able to extract? He'll have to have a talk with the intelligence department after this is over.
What exactly are you going on about? What other transformation? All it states in these logs are that these monkeys can transform into even bigger monkeys due to their bodies absorbing these blood waves that are emitted from nearby moons.
With a smile on her face, Berryblue began explaining to Frieza about the Super Saiyan legend. Over 1,000 years ago, a Saiyan emerged that wielded unimaginable power. This Saiyan was so unbelievably strong that they couldn't control themselves. After laying waste to countless planets across the cosmos, the Saiyan became consumed by its own rage and power, never to be seen again. By the end of the story, Frieza was feeling rather annoyed. He was still displeased with the fact that this information wasn't in the database, but he was also becoming increasingly annoyed at the smirk on Berryblue's face as she told the legend.
What kind of game are you playing here, Berryblue? This isn't any real confirmation of another Saiyan transformation. It sounds more like a bedtime story these monkeys made up around a fire to help their spawn fall asleep at night.
Berryblue closed her eyes and shook her head slightly.
I believe that this story is a symbol of hope for the Saiyans and a warning for everyone else. It speaks of the potential of the Saiyans and their strength. If left unchecked, these Saiyans can reach a point where no one can control them. Not even you, my lord.
A ceiling light broke apart as the room began to shake. Everyone inside the spaceship reacted in terror as what appeared to be intense tremors were suddenly rocking the ship. Despite this, Berryblue remained calm as she maintained eye contact with the soon-to-be Emperor. Frieza's ki spiked as his anger was beginning to rise. Despite her close relationship with Frieza, she had made a direct jab at him. If this was any other person in the Cold Force, Frieza would have killed them in an instant. However, Frieza instead chose to take a deep breath. Once he had composed himself, the shaking ceased as he asked his advisor a simple question.
Are you doubting my abilities, Berryblue?
Not at all, my lord. I have spent many years teaching you all the necessary lessons for you to be the best emperor you can possibly be. I sincerely believe that there is no one else in this universe who is better fit to be emperor. And it is exactly because of this that I believe you should do everything in your power to ensure that no monkey wrenches are thrown your way.
I'm glad you see just how suited I am for the throne. But what exactly are you asking me to do? Kill all the Saiyans? If I did that, I'd be removing almost half of my army soldiers. Not to mention the amount of profit I'd be losing on the planet selling business.
It is good that you are viewing the possible outcomes of these actions. If you are still unsure, then simply gather more information about the Saiyans. Perhaps hire an informant or a spy that will give you a constant, steady stream of information about the Saiyans' actions. Knowledge is power after all, and there is no one as powerful as you. Right, my lord?
Oh, indeed I am. Very well then, I will keep your considerations in mind. Now, be gone, Berryblue. I would like to return to my studies.
As you wish, my lord.
After Berryblue left his chamber, Frieza looked at his monitor again, which was still displaying the database's Saiyan page.
The legendary Super Saiyan, eh? No one is allowed to be stronger than me.
As the days went on, Berryblue's words echoed in Frieza's mind. The Saiyans did have the uncanny ability to get stronger the more they fought. Although Frieza wasn't afraid of any of them individually, if the entire race continued getting stronger and decided to revolt. And if it also turned out that this legend was true, Frieza came to a decision. Instead of simply killing them all immediately, he'd have a spy within the inner circle of the Saiyan leader, King Vegeta. This spy would covertly relay to Frieza all the latest information regarding the King, the elites, and any news regarding any extremely powerful Saiyans. Through personal, encrypted messages, Frieza was able to employ the Saiyan scientist Nion to be his secret informant in exchange for riches and higher status within the new Frieza force. A few days before Frieza and King Cole were to arrive on Planet Vegeta, Frieza received an urgent transmission from Nion. The scientist reported to the Emperor the existence of a Saiyan child with enormous power. Although this child was only recently born, it had a power level that was already larger than most adult Saiyan elites. Frieza was very alarmed at this news. If this child were to continue growing and maturing, he could end up becoming the legendary Super Saiyan. Even if he didn't, he could rally the Saiyan race against the Frieza force in the future. Nion went on to say that King Vegeta was not yet informed of the child's power. The tyrant immediately informed her that she must do whatever it takes to convince the king to kill this pest. The following day, King Vegeta visited the elite Saiyan nursery to see his son. He had received a message from one of his scientists requesting that he enter the nursery to personally see Prince Vegeta's development. When he arrived, the king was very pleased to see his son's rapid growth and power. However, this delight soon turns to shock as he sees a low-class Saiyan baby in this restricted area. Nion approaches the king alone, explaining that this child, Broly, is the son of General Paragus and that his power is exceptionally high. It was so high, every single power reader was exploding upon contact. At first, King Vegeta is outraged and considers exiling Broly to a deserted, hostile planet. However, Nion interjects and suggests killing the boy with poison. She reasons that, if the boy were to survive, reach adulthood and escape that planet, he'd be so powerful that there would be nothing in this universe that would stop him from getting revenge on the royal family. King Vegeta ponders on this matter briefly, and without any hint of remorse, orders the scientist to kill Broly. Nion obliges, and she fills the boy's incubation pod with a deadly poison. Broly looks agitated for a moment before he begins shaking violently. Broly's ki spikes as the room begins to shake, and a massive crack forms on the glass in the incubation pod. Broly lets out a loud, primal roar that shatters the incubation pod, which was then followed by a mouth beat that blasts a hole through the wall. And then, nothing. Just as quickly as it began, it was over. King Vegeta and Nion approached the body of the son of Paragus, where Nion confirmed that he was indeed dead. In a cold sweat, King Vegeta observes the damage caused by the infant as he thinks to himself that he made the right decision. Afterwards, King Vegeta summoned General Paragus to his throne room, where he explained to him that his son Broly was dead. At first, King Vegeta tried lying to the heartbroken Saiyan, claiming that Broly died due to unforeseen complications in the incubation pod. However, a distraught Paragus shrieks at the king in defiance.
Do you seriously expect me to believe that putrid pile of lies? You killed him! You realize that my boy was far more powerful than you and your own son, so you decided to put him down like a dog in order to keep your precious crown.
This is a serious accusation you are throwing at me, Paragus. Just because you're a general in my army, that does not mean you can unjustly accuse and disrespect your own king. Apologize now and you can leave this room alive. Continue disobeying me and you shall be punished accordingly.
My Broly. My son. He was going to bring hope back to our people. And you killed him! I'll kill you for this!
An enraged Paragus lunges at the king's neck, but he is stopped by the palace guards, who then proceed to restrain him.
You absent-minded buffoon! You received a generous act of mercy, but yet you chose to throw that away. Not only that, you committed high treason by attempting to murder your own king. This will not stand. As king of the mighty Saiyan race, I hereby declare that Paragus be stripped of his rank and title. Additionally, I declare Paragus to be a traitor to the Saiyan race, and for his unruly act of attempting to murder his king, I sentence him to death. Your execution will be determined at a later date. Gods, take this filth out of my sight. The guards respond with a simple salute as they drag the barking, grief-stricken Paragus out of the throne room and towards the dungeons. King Vegeta sits back down on his throne and sighs. Although he just lost a potential warrior and a useful general, he had also guaranteed his son's safe ascension to the throne. Or, at least, that's what he believed. Little did he know that he was being manipulated by a greater power, and his actions on that day doomed any chance for his race to survive and have a better future. Several days after the death of his son, Paragus was scheduled to have his public execution by a firing squad. As news spread of the general's betrayal and attack on the king, many Saiyans gathered from throughout Planet Vegeta to witness his end. As Paragus is set to be shot, King Vegeta asks the defeated Saiyan if he has any last words. Paragus spits at the floor, and in one final act of defiance, Paragus coldly tells him,
I'll see you in hell, Vegeta.
Paragus is immediately shot at all sides by soldiers with blasters. By the time the sound of the blast ceases, Paragus is already dead. King Vegeta angrily orders his soldiers to retrieve the corpse and burn it to ashes. A lone Saiyan soldier with spiky hair looks on from the audience with a somber expression on his face. He has a bad feeling in his gut that tells him that this execution will be the beginning of something awful. He didn't know what it was or when it would come, but it will spell disaster for the people on Planet Vegeta. Frieza soon received intel that the infant Saiyan Broly and his father had been killed. The tyrant was delighted to hear the news that this bothersome problem had been properly disposed of. For the next 5 years, Frieza continued monitoring the progress and actions of the Saiyans while also maintaining contact with his informant. Although no new Saiyan children were born that matched Broly's massive power, Frieza was still worried about the efficiency at which the Saiyans were able to conquer worlds. He had implemented a new policy for his forces to have their power levels measured on a regular basis. The reports made by the Information Department from the last 5 years showed the gradually rising power levels of the Saiyan warriors sent to battles. Frieza soon began to worry once again that the Saiyans may be becoming too strong for their own good. After receiving the latest reports, Frieza requests for Kikono and Berryblue to meet him in his personal chamber. After the two advisors arrived, Frieza informed them that he was planning to exterminate the entire Saiyan race. Kikono was shocked by this news and began stuttering his confused objections at Frieza, while Berryblue simply stayed where she was, smiling all the while.
But sire, eliminating the Saiyans would essentially cut your army soldier count by nearly half. And it'd be much more time-consuming and expensive to repossess planets. Are you sure you've thought this through?
Frieza momentarily loses his composure as he spins around on his hoverpod and stares daggers at Kikono.
Of course I have.
I've been thinking about this matter for more than 5 years now. I've been closely monitoring them and carefully analyzing every report regarding the Saiyans. Did you know that the overall strength of each individual Saiyan warrior has had a higher growth in power level and performance than any other race of beings in the Frieza Force? Or that their population size has been steadily increasing by 15% in just 5 years alone? Not to mention their disgusting monkey transformations and...
Frieza stopped himself from going any further. If he had continued shouting, he would have inadvertently spoken aloud the fear that had been growing in his heart for all these years. He had been keeping it to himself, but saying it aloud would have been, in his eyes, proof that he was not only a coward, but an imposter who was unfit to be emperor. What kind of emperor would ever show their weakness in front of his subjects?
I apologize for my earlier outburst, Kikono. It was most unbecoming of me. However, my decision still stands. I am well aware of the profits and successes that the Saiyan race brings to me. However, it is also my belief that it is only a matter of time before these dirty Saiyans attempt to rebel and fight back against my forces. Although we would inevitably defeat them, the losses in troops and resources in the ensuing battles be most unacceptable. So, I am taking out this problem before it ever becomes a problem. Do I make myself clear? Yes, my lord! Good. Now, Kikono, I want you to relay a message to the rest of the Frieza Force. Every single Saiyan is to be summoned to Planet Vegeta immediately. This includes any Saiyans who may be out in far-off planets and star systems. Berryblue, I request that you gather 12 or so battalions of ships. Once all the Saiyans have gathered, we will be surrounding the planet so not a single monkey has an opportunity to escape. Failure is not an option. Now, off you go.
Kikono bows quickly and Berryblue makes a slow nodding motion before they both set off to do their designated tasks. Kikono quickly relays Frieza's summons to every Saiyan soldier currently off-planet to return immediately, while Berryblue organizes the necessary manpower and equipment needed to barricade an entire world. It takes several weeks, but eventually, every single Saiyan had returned to their home planet. Even the Saiyan Prince, Vegeta, had returned with his team despite being several star systems away while on an important repossession job. Among one of the returning Saiyans was one named Bardock. He had been growing suspicious of Frieza's summons, and he became even more suspicious once he found out that it was a call for every Saiyan to return. The horrible feeling in his gut that he hadn't felt in 5 years had come back in full force. Once Bardock arrived, he quickly gathered his wife, Gine, and his 2 sons, Raditz and Kakarot, in order to inform them of his plan. His children will be sent to a far-off planet on a stolen space pod. Gine and Raditz protested this at first, but Bardock was convinced that something terrible was about to befall Planet Vegeta. At the very least, he wanted to ensure that his sons survive. He saw that there were many Frieza Force soldiers either patrolling the Saiyan villages or stationed around the space pods, as if to prevent anyone from getting off-world. That same night, Bardock and his family headed towards an empty, rocky field that was away from the main Saiyan settlement with a stolen space pod when they are suddenly stopped by a group of mid-tier Frieza soldiers. Bardock curses himself for being so careless and letting himself get followed. The soldiers question what they're doing with an unauthorized pod, and Bardock, realizing there's no other choice, headbutts one of the soldiers and orders his eldest son Raditz to attack with all he's got. The 2 Saiyans rush at the soldiers and put up a decent fight at first. However, it's quickly made clear how disadvantaged the Saiyan family is. Although not as strong as Bardock, they outnumbered them and they were starting to overwhelm Raditz. One of the soldiers breaks free from the fight and fires a shot from his blaster towards Gine. Bardock screams at Gine to dodge, but it's too late. Gine is shot through the chest, killing both her and Kakarot, who she was holding in her arms. Time slows down for Bardock as he enters a berserker rage. As Bardock begins killing the soldiers that were attacking Raditz, one of the soldiers calls in backup as reinforcements begin approaching their coordinates. As more and more soldiers gather, Raditz becomes overwhelmed by the numbers and he is killed when multiple soldiers kick him to the ground and begin firing repeatedly at the boy. Bardock, even in his unbridled fury, is unable to move much as many soldiers begin to dogpile on the Saiyan. At this moment, a large, bright ball of light begins to engulf the skies around Planet Vegeta. The soldiers, and then Bardock, notice the luminescent sphere as it begins increasing in size. This massive ball was about to strike the planet. As the soldiers around Bardock begin to panic, Bardock is finally able to shake them off as he rushes toward the space pod. He is about to enter the pod when an entire squadron of soldiers begin firing directly at Bardock, leaving holes in his body. Bardock coughs up blood, and yet, despite the heavy amount of blood loss, he still stands. He takes one last look at the lifeless bodies of Raditz, Gine, and Kakarot as pure, overwhelming rage fills his entire being. I swear, no matter what happens, even if I die here, even if all the Saiyans die here, Frieza will pay for what he's done. I'll never rest until Frieza is dead, you hear me? Frieza will pay for what he's done! As the gigantic ball of light gets closer to the planet and the soldiers scatter off in a feeble attempt to save their lives, Bardock places a bloodied hand over the window of the space pod, smearing it. If he had only been a moment sooner, his family would still be alive. Bardock dies on the spot, still standing with his hand on top of the pod window. The last thing Bardock felt before he passed was an overwhelming amount of hatred and sorrow. The last thought he had before he blacked out was a vow of revenge towards Frieza. A controller falls from the dead Saiyan's furry hand and it lands face down, which clicks one of its buttons. The empty space pod ascends from the ground and flies off into space as Bardock's body hits the dirt beneath it. The space pod exits orbit just as the supernova collides with Planet Vegeta, destroying the entire planet. In a nearby ship, Frieza looks on at the exploding planet as a wave of relief and happiness floods his body. He had done it. He had finally put to rest his fears and killed every single Saiyan in the universe. Now, there would be no possible way for a Super Saiyan to ever rise up and challenge him. Kikuno interrupts Frieza's maniacal laughter to inform him that a space pod had been detected exiting Planet Vegeta's orbit. Frieza's stomach dropped. He stood up and yelled exasperatedly at Kikuno, asking him if there was anyone inside. Kikuno nervously states that there were no power level readings or signs of life inside the pod. Frieza calmed down upon hearing this good news. It seemed like one of the Saiyans attempted to escape but was stopped during the process. It's a good thing he had those soldiers stationed on that planet to prevent such an attempt from happening. Frieza sat back down in his hoverpod, and when Kikuno asked him if they should intercept or destroy the pod, Frieza told him not to do anything.
But why, my lord? It wouldn't take much time or effort to retrieve that pod. Oh, it's nothing to worry about. That pod is simply one final, feeble attempt by a desperate monkey trying to delay the inevitable. Alas, it had no chance to escape its destiny. Let the pod keep going. Let it be a reminder to everyone that sees it that there is no hope for anyone who dares to cross me.
Frieza resumes laughing hysterically as the rest of the Frieza force involved in the operation looks on at the floating space rocks that used to be Planet Vegeta. Although the Frieza force did lose a large percentage of their soldiers and a significant amount of revenue as expected, these numbers slowly replenished over time as more soldiers and planets were added to Frieza's empire. People across the galaxy learned what happened to Planet Vegeta, as every race in Frieza's empire were now aware of what could happen to them and their planets if they ever displeased Frieza. Many years pass as the Saiyans begin to fade from memory. On a far-off galaxy, thousands of light years away from the nearest Frieza Empire outpost, stands a blue planet that is teeming with life. Within that blue planet lies a large expanse of mountains, and within those mountains resides a small, quaint house that belongs to a kind old man. This kind old man used to have a very grand, adventurous life, but he decided long ago to spend his later years as a hermit. Living alone in the mountains, the old man known as Son Gohan enjoyed the peace and quiet this lifestyle brought to him. However, over time, he began to ponder about his self-imposed isolation and, although he felt like he had lived a good life, he also felt a sense of uneasiness and doubt in his heart, although he couldn't exactly explain what it was. Son Gohan also wondered if fate still had anything left to throw at him. He thought that he had seen everything life could possibly throw at him, but perhaps there was still something out there that could surprise the elderly martial arts master. As it turns out, there was. One day, as he sat outside on his chair eating breakfast, he heard what sounded like a motor engine revving in the distance. Gohan is surprised. He couldn't even remember the last time he had a guest visit him. The car door opens and the driver, a young girl with blue hair and a pink dress, approaches him. They exchange greetings, and Son Gohan asks the bright-eyed traveler what she's doing so far away from home. This young girl was named Bulma, and she responded to his questions with a very peculiar question of her own. She asked if he had happened to have a small, orange crystal ball with stars on it. Gohan confirms that he does indeed have a ball that matches her description, and he invites her inside his home to show her. After making a pot of hot herbal tea and making a cup to his new guest, Gohan opens a small chest which contains the mesmerizing little ball. Gohan explains that he found this strange ball one day while he was out doing his daily walks across the forest. Bulma lights up upon seeing it and asks the old man to give her the ball. Gohan is a little taken aback and says he's grown fond of the peculiar looking ball and its bizarre star patterns. She begs him to give her the ball and even attempts to coerce him by offering to show the old man her panties. Gohan, perplexed and flustered, asks her why she's so desperate to have this thing. Bulma begins to explain the legend of the Dragon Balls. The story goes that there are 7 crystal balls embedded with stars scattered all over the planet. If all 7 balls are gathered together, a bright light will come forth from out of the balls, and a dragon will appear who will grant a single wish to whomever brought the balls together. Gohan is fascinated with this story and wonders if there's any truth to this legend. He then asks Bulma what it is she wants to wish for, and she confidently states that she wants to wish for the perfect boyfriend, which causes Gohan to fall flat on his face. At first, Gohan laughs, but then he starts to wonder, maybe, if he were to see this dragon, he just might be able to find out what exactly has been bothering him lately. The old hermit tells Bulma that he is willing to give her his Dragon Ball, but under one condition. He will accompany her on this quest to gather the other Dragon Balls. Bulma is a bit hesitant at first, but Gohan reassures her that not only has he traveled the world many times in his youth, and knows the surrounding areas like the back of his hand, He also reveals himself to be an experienced martial artist that can protect her if any danger comes her way. Bulma is suspicious of these claims and asks him to prove it. So Gohan puts down his tea, walks out of his house, and calmly picks up her car without breaking a single sweat. Bulma's eyes pop out of her head as a smiling Gohan asks if she believes him now. She slowly nods her head in disbelief. Gohan then asks if this also means he can accompany her on her trip. She slowly nods her head, still in disbelief. Gohan jumps and clicks his heels together as he enters his house to begin packing his bags. After gathering some clothes, socks, food, a journal, his trusty power pole, and his Dragon Ball, Gohan exits his house and sees Bulma, who is currently attempting to lift the car herself to see if Gohan had played any kind of tricks on her. Gohan laughs and Bulma, embarrassed, asks him if he's ready to go. The elderly master turns around and looks at his house once more. He had lived in this house for decades, and during that time, this peaceful wilderness was his world. Now, son Gohan was about to embark on a quest that he never expected to go on, and leave his home for the first time in years. Son Gohan looks at Bulma, and with an optimistic smile, tells her that he's ready.
Yep, I'm all ready to go. Goodbye, my home. I'll only be gone for a bit. I hope to see you soon.
Alright, looks like we're all set. I hope you got your seatbelt on, old man, because we're about to go on a bumpy ride.
Wait, I'm not ready yet. Let me put on my...
Even amongst all the death and destruction, life goes on. On the blue planet, in one of the farthest corners of the galaxy, a young girl and an old man depart on an adventure of a lifetime. In search of the mythical Dragon Balls, they are completely unaware of the ramifications their journey will bring to the entire universe. Will our heroes succeed in their quest? Will they be able to overcome the many obstacles in their path? What will happen to our heroes in a universe without Saiyans? Find out next time on Dragon Ball.
Don't you get it, old man? P is stored in the Dragon Balls.